It's crazy to think that we're already a month into autumn here in the subtropics of Australia. We've just finished off one of our wettest months of the year and we can finally feel the weather starting to cool down. If you're new here, I'm Nikki and I try to grow as much food as I can on our regular suburban block here in South East Queensland, Australia. Our climate is challenging over summer, but we can grow veggies all year round. To avoid that feast or famine, I plant out one small bed each month with a variety of plants for our staple crops. The bed we planted out direct with seeds last month did get a bit knocked around with the crazy amount of rain we've had, but it has finally kicked into gear. My old radish seed were done, none of those sprouted, but we've already done our first thinning of carrots, which is where I cut out any excess seedlings so they are spaced around 2 centimeters apart. We'll be able to harvest some rocket pretty soon and the peas are growing really well. The corn that we were growing from January that was flowering when Cyclone Alfred hit had to be pulled out. I thought that I had a few ears before all the pollen was blown off the flowers, and someone suggested just picking it as baby corn, but on closer inspection, they hadn't even actually gotten to that point. Only 2 plants had ears formed. I cut my losses and I'm now going to use this bed for my April staple planting. During the cyclone, I did bring all of my seedling trays inside for a few days, and unfortunately the lack of sun made them a little bit leggy. Then when I put them out, some of them rotted with the crazy amount of rain we had. While some survived, I did have to replant my cabbage, kale, Swiss chard and cauliflower, so planting those out is going to be a little bit delayed for me. I re-sowed my seeds right away, so they should be good to go in the ground next month. Fortunately, I like to overplant on the seedling front, and I had plenty of broccoli, spring onions and lettuce that could go straight in. The bed I'm planting in is a bit bigger than last month. It's 1.3 meters long by 0.9 meters wide. This is a Birdie's, I think it's a 6-in-1 raised garden bed. We filled it with a spent banana tree in the bottom and we've topped it up with compost and some of our native soil. We did a cover crop on it over summer and I've just topped it off with some fresh compost. In spring, we did find that this bed has root knot nematodes. They're really hard to get rid of. Mostly, I just avoid planting their favorite food for a few seasons. They particularly like anything in the beet family and also carrots, so I'm avoiding those this month. I have a trellis on my southern side and I'm going to plant in some sugar snap peas. This variety is called Cascadia. It's a variety that does really well here in the subtropics as it is powdery mildew resistant. That doesn't mean that it won't get it, particularly later in the season. It just tends to be a bit more resilient than other pea varieties. They don't need a tall trellis like the giant Eucuma snow peas that I planted last month. Usually around 1.2 meters is enough. I already had a larger trellis in place, so I'm just going to leave that in for now. In this size bed, I'm going to fit in 6 broccoli plants in a 30 centimeter group. If I had a 1 meter bed, I'd probably only fit around 4. If it was a 2 meter bed, I'd probably get in 8. I bury these down to the first set of leaves. I do this with all of my brassicas, so my cabbage, kale and cauliflower. For this particular layout, you could definitely swap your broccoli out for cabbage, kale or cauliflower as they take around about the same space. Just keep in mind that if you do cabbage and possibly kale, they might take a little bit longer. So depending on if you want to turn over this bed quite quickly will determine what you choose to plant in this space. Broccoli will get quite huge, so don't be fooled by their small size now. On the western side, which is the side that will get the most amount of sun for us, I'm going in with some cos lettuce broken up with some spring onions in between. If you are getting more sun from the eastern or even the northern sides, you might want to swap sides, maybe plant them on the other side. The lettuce should mostly be finished by the time the broccoli really decides to take over. So that's that simple staples bed sorted out for April. This time of year, I do have a lot of issues with cutworms and native cockroaches taking out my seedlings, which unfortunately did happen to me after I planted these out. I've had to replace the broccoli a few times and also the lettuce in a matter of days. So I am grateful that I did have a lot more still in the greenhouse. I have resorted to using some diatomaceous earth around my seedlings, and so far I haven't had any further losses. Diatomaceous earth, or DE, isn't toxic. It's fossilized remains of aquatic organisms, and when it's dry, it's helpful against bugs that have exoskeletons, such as mites, aphids, ants, beetles, earwigs, leafhoppers, mealybugs, scale, and slaters. Just be mindful that it will also affect good guys like your ladybugs. It is also packed full of minerals such as silica, calcium, and magnesium, so even adding it as an amendment to your soil is beneficial. It does need to be dry to be effective for pest control though. If you're after some garden grade DE, you can grab it from my website. This month I also planted my autumn tomatoes. Normally I wait for them to get a little bit bigger, but I was happy with how fast that these grew in the windstrip air pruning pots. These are San Mazzanos, they're a Roma variety. They did get a little bit leggy from bringing inside from the cyclone, but I thinned them down a lot and I think it helped them get stronger. In this 2-meter bed, I've planted 6 around 50 centimeters apart, and I've buried them right down to the first leaf as well. I haven't organized any trellis for these yet, but I am thinking I will do a Florida weave to support them. This variety doesn't get extremely tall, but it is an indeterminate one, so it does need to be held up. I did also plant out my garlic last week, and also leeks and onions, plus some old potatoes I found. You can check out that planting in my video that I published last week. You can plant garlic right up until the end of the month. I usually also like to have all my onions done in April as well. The space fillers such as spinach, lettuce, and extra spring onions I raised in trays last month, I have placed around the garden wherever space has become available. I like having a supply of these things that I can just plonk in when a space becomes available. So next up, I'm heading to the greenhouse where I'm going to plant out my standard spring onions, more cos lettuce. I'm going to do some Asian greens, so some pak choi, and I'm also going in with kohlrabi. Kohlrabi may not be something that you've grown before, but I love it as it is such a versatile veggie that doesn't take up a lot of space. I think of it like a solid cabbage. It can be grated raw and used in salads like coleslaw. It can be sauteed. I love it with a bit of butter and brown sugar, or even you can roast it or slow cook it like a turnip. This one I'm going in with is the purple Vienna, and the purple skin has a little bit of a bite to it. If you're after something a little bit milder, look at getting the green one. I'm also going to pop in some coriander and some dill, which I will use as space fillers around the garden. If you're looking to plant along with me, you can grab my seed bundle that I've packaged all up, which will include everything that I'll be planting in these staple beds for the next 3 months. I'll pop a link into the description if you're interested in grabbing that. Anyway, that's it for what we're planting this month in our subtropical vegetable garden. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.